Good evening, everyone. We're going to be starting in just a minute. I'm actually going to launch a poll to, if you all have an opportunity in order to respond to the poll, so just so we have a good sense of who is in the room, and we will end the poll before. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction and we'll end the poll in order to see who's in the room. Okay. Just going to wait a second, and y'all please continue to work on the poll, and I will do an introduction in just a minute. Great, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sixto Wagan. I am the project director for the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. For those for whom a visual description would be helpful, I present as a middle-aged man of Filipino descent with short salt and pepper hair and a graying beard. I am wearing a peachy short sleeve barong with orange embroidery. And my background is a blue and white quilted hanging and a blue and white photograph by Janet Rowe. Before we continue, I would like to offer this acknowledgement. We believe that one of the roles in the arts is to make the invisible visible. We also believe that it is not the responsibility for those who have been made invisible to remind us that we are still here. Therefore, as a committed ally, the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund acknowledge that the ground on which we work is the traditional land of the Karankawa, Akokisa, Tonkawa, and the Mexica and Atakapak Ishak people. We honor their ancestors, past, present, and future, and recognize their continued existence and contributions to our society. This region we refer to as the 9-county region of Greater Houston is the home to a diverse set of people. Some residents can trace their connection back to the land for generations, some for months. Some were brought here unwillingly or came here as escape from additional violence. Some came to build a future that was not possible elsewhere. We recognize those hopes, dreams, and possibilities, and we believe that our work today builds on those histories and creates a shared and connected future that contributes to the thriving of this region and its people. The Black Indigenous People of Color Arts Network and Fund is a learning initiative that evolves through an ongoing conversations and process. We share this current vision of our current work. The BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, otherwise known as BANF, is a revolutionary arts ecosystem that empowers BIPOC artists, organizations, and communities in Greater Houston area with transformative opportunities to dream, connect, collaborate, and create. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to, hopefully you all have answered the poll. I'm going to give, I'll keep the poll open for just a little bit after I do the overview. Yeah, let me do the overview first, and then I'll go to the poll. So and thank you for joining us. We're excited to share with you about the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund and some of the learning that we have had with our community partners since our launch. And that this round, around the second round of the Artist Awards, I'd like to thank the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund coordinator Hank Hancock and Gabriela Mangana, one of our community consultants, who is supporting this session. During the session, I'll give an introduction to BANF, speak about some of the work and learning that has led to the Artist Awards. We'll provide an overview of the community design and review process. And we'll also speak about the learning community that we continue to build that connects artists, arts organization, and foundation partners, and community partners. We'll go into detail around the parameters, basic parameters of this award opportunity, and then we'll have time for questions at the end of our presentation. Please note that we will have other information sessions that go into more detail about the application and its component. And this session is here to give about a broader vision of the work, as well as some key changes from the first round of the Artist Awards, and how this opportunity is the next element of our strategy to build a thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem in Greater Houston. So I'm going to end the poll so we can see who we have in the room. Thanks. We have about the majority of you all, 80% of you all are independent artists and creative professionals, nonprofit arts professionals. Thanks for all that. It's great to see all of you all here. It's great to see the different disciplines, highly visual arts, but then it's great to see so many other performing arts folks in this space. In terms of Harris County, yes, we assumed many of you all are from Harris County, but it's great to thank you for those of you from Montgomery, Brazoria, Galveston, Fort Bend for joining us in this space. For those who are not living in Greater Houston area, we need to be clear that this opportunity is specifically for residents of the Greater Houston area. So we welcome you for this information session, but the opportunity specifically is for residents in this area. And thanks. Great. It's great to see who is in the room, and thanks for all of you in this moment. So before we can continue, I'm going to talk a little bit more around the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund and about us. Yes, that's what we're doing. So the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is a multi-year initiative dedicated to providing resources that support the vibrant BIPOC arts community of Greater Houston and fully displaying their power, values, and traditions. This is a groundbreaking effort, was born out of the Ford Foundation's America's Cultural Treasures Initiative, which in September of 2020 committed an unprecedented $276 million to support BIPOC arts communities across the country in response to the devastating economic impact of COVID-19, and to catalyze a conversation around how BIPOC arts organizations and communities have been historically overlooked and under-resourced. Part of that effort named 20 organizations as America's Cultural Treasures, and those 20 were recognized as significant anchors for artistic and cultural diversity in America, and one of them who is Houston's own Project Row Houses. The Regional Grant-Making Initiative invested over $117 million across 9 regions, including Greater Houston. We invited in local philanthropic partners to match funding in support of multi-year grant programs for cultural groups of color with exceptional regional or local significance. So in Houston, the Houston Endowment and Ford Foundation led the way for the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund's creation, and with an additional generous contributions from the Kinder Foundation, the Powell Foundation, and the Brown Foundation Incorporated. Unlike other regional initiatives, the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is structured as a collaborative, multi-phase and resource network guided by funders, artists, and nonprofit leaders in the region. We have a steering committee, as well as an accountability advisory council, as well as community consultants who helped to define the vision of the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, our strategies, and that they help us understand the needs of our community and the impacts. And then in order to make sure that we continued to be community-led and be responsive to the needs of the Greater Houston area and our BIPOC communities. So acknowledging historical underinvestment in Houston BIPOC cultures and arts communities, the initiative aims to increase philanthropic support to collective grant making and facilitate new connections between funders and prospective grantees through shared decision-making authority. We utilize equity-focused and community participatory funding initiatives. We develop shared outcomes with funders, philanthropy, and community leaders. We enact community-informed evaluation and learning practices and employed an asset-based network building strategies that informed leadership, advocacy, and action to break down silos within the art ecosystem and welcome everyone to support and learn from BIPOC arts communities. So in January 2022, we announced our first round of $2 million investments in 120 arts organizations and arts and culture organizations and fiscally sponsored artist collectives in Greater Houston's Black, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, North African, and other communities of color to support them through the compounded crisis of the pandemic, weather incidents, and related hardships. Since that announcement, we've heard from the network and how those grants make significant impacts on our communities. Grantees shared stories about how the grant brought recognition, legitimacy, and visibility to their work, how it is important in order to have unrestricted funds in order so that the organizations and artists could actually put money to where it's most needed, including organizational operations and personal and aesthetic needs, artistic needs. The grantees actually also deepened their programmatic capacity and impact in communities and beyond, and catalyzed new funding and helped shift conditions in the funding field. So fully investing in a thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem means that we need to directly invest in our artists. So we have already announced our first round of 25 grant awardees, and that's $500,000. Today launches the second round and final round of our artist award. And we will in December be announcing 25 new artist awardees, each to create transformative opportunities for artists and their commitments to Houston communities of color. The strategy BANF develops to invest in these resources are guided by the community itself. We are leaders who are artists, directors of arts organizations, foundation program officers, community activists. We build conversations from diverse sectors across the community so we can build a network of support and care that lasts beyond a 5-year initiative. To talk more about our leadership design and how the community participates in the design process, I would like to introduce Gabriela Mangana, who has been working with us through this process.
Thank you. Thank you. So in an effort to make sure that those who are most affected are designing the programs, BAM has actually brought together leaders from our first round of grantees, and they invited community partners to help design the guidelines, criteria, and processes. In 2023, we had partners including Community Artists Collective, Ensemble Theater, LAWA, which stands for Latin American Women Artists of Houston, MECA, which stands for Multicultural Educational and Counseling Through the Arts, Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say, and Urban Souls. And this year, we are welcoming Alma, who has joined as one of our operational partners. Amongst community consultants, we also have a number of 2023 artist grantees. So responding to what we've heard before, we have built a process in which Latinx and Black communities are involved in the design and review process to provide a common language and understanding of the nuances and histories of such communities, as well as their specific needs, histories, and aesthetics. We will share a list of operational partners and community consultants on our website.
Thanks so much, Gabi. So as I said before, part of our name is network. We value personal connections, collaborations, and learning. We focus on an ecosystemic approach and how each are part of a valued part of a larger system. We believe that by working together, we strengthen each other and the region. We also recognize that we are currently a time-limited initiative, and that we are utilizing this time as a way to invest in strategies and catalyze opportunities. Recognize the cultural nodes that have helped our communities to survive. Our current funding lasts through May of 2026, and so we've been really strategic around what that is and what opportunities are available to us within that time period. We believe that there is much knowledge and experience in our communities that is under-recognized and under-documented. We invest in peer learning cohorts and support networks so that our creative leaders can continue to gain knowledge, validation, and connection that offers opportunities to leverage toward a thriving ecosystem. We are committed to sharing the learning and recognizing that utilization leads to refinement and increased clarity. We have developed learnings at HoustonBanf.org as a means to share prior work and some of the results. We also have developed a core of community reviewers who will be working with working partner and evaluation consultant in order to develop an evaluation process that can reflects community knowledge, experience, and voice. And that we will be doing a public forum next year in which we will be able to share the knowledge and understanding up to this point. So the 2025 BANF Artist Awards. We recognize that individual artists are essential to Houston's arts ecosystem and are announcing the $1 million investment over 3 years to create transformative opportunities for artists whose artistic practice demonstrates a history of service and support for and with the greater Houston BIPOC communities. The BANF Individual Artist Awards will provide a one-time investment of up to $20,000 to 25 awardees. This is the final round of this award. Each of these final 25 awardees will demonstrate the rich diversity and potential of, the awardees will actually demonstrate the rich diversity and potential of Greater Houston's BIPOC arts ecosystem and artist community. And that we believe that the awardees will come from different parts of the city, have different educational backgrounds, different areas of creative focus, and cultural histories. They may speak the different languages, have different reasons for coming to Houston, but they all have demonstrated a history of supporting our communities of color through their creative practice. We want to engage with artist leaders who have demonstrated consistent and ongoing creative engagement and interaction that has benefited Greater Houston's communities of color. We believe that by investing in those artists, the Greater Houston community will also benefit. I want to be clear that we do not have a preconceived definition of artist, nor a singular definition of servant leadership. We have made a commitment to discover with our consultants and with our review panels how Houston artists and creative already do that work in Houston. We are interested in how our applicants describe their service and how the community members can continue to describe their impact of their work. We want to celebrate the amazing work that is done across the city, and we want to recognize and honor that work through this award. There are lots of stories of creative leadership that contribute to thriving communities of color. It is a competitive opportunity. And so that although the concept of artist, creative work, and service are left intentionally open, applicants are invited to describe how they show servant leadership in their work, how they focus on the needs, growth, and well-being of their communities rather than individual benefit. This is an important part of why we ask for community advocates who share the impact of the artist's work through their statements of support. We are choosing to make investments in a few people and believe that these awards of up to $20,000 will be transformative to these artists' lives and their careers. Since this award is not tied to a specific project, we are asking the awardees to commit to share and learn with us and each other. We are asking them to be part of a learning network, and through that idea of sharing, collaborations, and inspiration, the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund can facilitate adaptation and thriving throughout the city. So, yes, Gabby, can you talk through the eligibility and application elements?
Yes, for eligibility, there are truly very few eligibility requirements to apply to this award. This is part of our learning to invite people into the process who might not have felt welcomed in other processes. To be eligible, applicants must have an address located in the 9-county region of the Greater Houston area, which includes the Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, and Waller counties. This should be their primary residence and a primary focus of their work in the past 2 years. And of course, awardees must be at least 21 years old. When it comes to the application elements, thank you. We will have narrative questions. We will also have work samples and 2 statements of support. It could be from advocates or collaborators. Applicants can submit using either written text or video responses. We are also accepting Spanish language responses, and we would like to support other primary languages, but please check with us prior to submission to make sure that we can make those accommodations for translation. We will go into more detail about the application elements in the application and submittable info session.
Thanks, Debbie. So the review process is similar to what we said last time, that it's four parts. Step 1 is eligibility review. Basically, we needed to make sure that you all are live in the 9-county region of Greater Houston, and that you are 21 years old by today's date. We'll go into the panel review, which is all applications will be reviewed and scored in relationship to the criteria. We are not comparing them to each other. We are comparing them to the criteria. Readers include BANF leadership, operational partners, community reviewers, and some of those community reviewers were nominated from an open call on our website. We have, of course, the Black and Latinx community-specific panels who will review applications who self-identify from those communities. From the online review and panel process, we will also then have a panel of reviewers who will review the finalist applications and determine a slate of awardees who will be named as part of the learning community. After that, step 4 will be a confirmation, verifications, and approvals. And then recognizing that folks don't have to have a social security number, but they do have to have an individual taxpayer identification number in order to be able to receive the award through Houston Arts Alliance, who is our operational partner. Let's see. Okay, the review criteria. So awardees will share these characteristics and experiences, right? And that artists who self-identify from our BIPOC communities will see particular consideration. Artists whose creative work has been recognized by local, regional, national, cultural organization leaders. So it's about recognition and acknowledgement, but it's not necessarily about awards. It's not necessarily about always big names or who the people, if your community members and your community has recognized your contribution, that's significant for us as well. That artists have to have a demonstrated history of service and support with our communities of color in Houston, and that the artist focus is geared toward a thriving community rather than individual gain. Distinctive in collaboration, service to community highlights the well-being and growth of its members. Artists have a demonstrated history of and commitment to artistic activity and production, and artists have a demonstrated and commitment to learning, offering expertise, and engaging with others in a productive and active manner. So I want to highlight a few shifts in this from the 2023 round. As we mentioned, we do maintain a learning approach to this work so that we don't go into this work with strict definitions of some of our terms. We hope that the guidelines and criteria give space for the applicants to narrate their own stories, demonstrate how their history of work and their visions demonstrate their criteria. That said, we want to create more specificity around the ideas of service and support. We believe that our communities uphold and value servant leadership, where leadership is expressed as part of building support for others in the community. That uplifting others and contributing to a network of support across communities, disciplines, and geographies has been significant and important to our communities of color, and that's part of what we want to recognize and award in this space. And again, recognition is not about traditional validation and acknowledgement. It's about community recognition. It's about how the community has benefited, how individuals have felt impact. All of those are significant metrics and significant measures of success for us. So it does not have to be big performances in big theaters or big exhibitions in notable galleries. All those are great, but also what we're looking for is how you've had service and supported organizations and communities of color. We've also refined the narrative question so that you can see how not only meaning to be part of a BIPOC community, but how your work and impact serves them. We also wanted to clarify around the artist cohort. When we launched last year, the idea of the artist cohort was still an idea. We had a lot of theories and we had a lot of hopes. What we actually have pulled together, what we're talking about now actually in the guidelines gives more distinctive framework for how we actually approach the artist cohort. Recognize that the learning community guiding question is, how can our collective knowledge transform the artistic landscape of Greater Houston? So we're looking for artists and artist awardees who can actually contribute to that conversation and that dialogue, not only through active conversation, but what does it look like and through their creative work and through their leadership. We also, and that there is an additional question in terms of the learning community in this space, because we wanted to give you opportunity in order to speak more directly to that. So essentially, if you had applied previously, the application that you had before could, with some revision, could easily be part of it. When you look at our application worksheet, instead of just giving you the narrative question, We actually have provided guiding questions for you, and those guiding questions have actually been developed in conjunction and partnership with some of our current awardees, as well as our operational partners and community consultants, so that people who have reviewed the process, who have been part of the process, actually have helped guide, given some of those guiding questions to help you in your application process. So suggest the next steps. We want you to determine if this is the right award, if this award is the right opportunity for you. Not everybody can actually commit to an 18-month learning community. For learning community, we're asking for at least an hour and a half every month in order to be part of the meetings, hour and a half to 2 hours every month for 18 months. We also recognize that when you are thinking about this, about your application, we're asking you to narrate about your story and your work, not about a specific project. We want you to give us around what has been the history, what has been your intent, what is your vision, and not just focus on what you want to accomplish next. We encourage you to review the guidelines and application worksheet in order to be able to ask questions. And then also, the next step is to identify and talk to your potential advocates around the award and your work. Talking to those advocates and figuring out who can actually be able to support of your work and stand up for you and share the knowledge is a really important component of this application process. So start to have that conversation early. Sign up for the the BANF newsletter, as particularly the Artist Award updates. We actually do send, if you sign up for Artist Award, the artist section of that aspect, we will send you weekly updates in relationship to what's any information that has come through on our FAQs, or relate onto upcoming opportunities through that aspect. We also encourage you to register in Submittable in order to be able to start the process and see what happens in that online thing. So for applicant support, we will continue to do information sessions. This is the first of a few. Next week, we actually have 2 information sessions that are scheduled. One is in Spanish and one is the application and submittable information session. You go to the web, it will all that information and registration information will be there when it's up there. Also go to support.houstonbanf.org and we'll have all of our FAQs. If you all had looked at applied last year, any question that we received that we can actually give a public answer to, we actually put on our FAQs, and hopefully that's a resource that actually helps you and guides you in this process. And then from July 8th through the 20th, we will have a limited sign up for 15-minute one-on-one help sessions. There will be, that schedule will actually be available starting June the 25th. So sign up for that newsletter in order to find out how to actually get that artist award and sign up for the 15 minutes. Key dates. Application is currently open. Materials are due, including this the support letters are all due by July 29th. That's Monday, July 29th. Oh, it should be 11:59 p.m., not 49. We'll fix that, but before midnight on Monday. The application review will be August through November of 2024. And then we believe that we're going to notify everybody in December of 2024. Here are the QR codes for the information sessions for the Spanish language information session on Monday, as well as the application and submittable session on next Wednesday. We'll put those up in the chat later on for you. Gabby, is there anything else that I missed before we go to the Q&A?
No.
Great. So that we are going to open up the check-in on the Q&As that have come in. And so Hank, Gabby, you want to read some questions for me and try to figure out how to answer them.
Yes, I'll go into the first question that we have. If a couple of mentors are on the BANF board, but they are not readers for the applications, can I request a letter of support from them, or do I need to find someone else?
Great question. If you know some of our leaders, I would encourage you to find other folks other than our BANF leadership in order to be our reviewers, because though that they might say that they're not doing an active part of the online review, all of our steering committee members will be part of the review process, and we would like them to be separate from the support. And then also the AAC members similarly. So you can ask them. We will actually put a list of folks that you should not. If you go to our website and you see their names as steering committee or AAC members, I encourage you not to ask them. Find other folks, find other support people for other people in their communities in order to be able to provide that letter of support. Next question.
Thank you. I can go into the next one, Hank. What if your cultural community does not support your art culturally, historically? It does not because of the nature of the art, which has remained in existence despite the objections of religion, where I can address the focus of my work with the art.
Great. So I think that this is a complex question that I'm not completely I'm not sure that I will get to the core of the questions, but I will try. I think that as long as a community of support is actually one of the communities of color in Greater Houston is part of what we are looking for. It does not have to be, you do not have to be representative of that community, but it does need to be in Greater Houston, and it does need to be some of the underserved communities here. There's a lot of complex histories and a lot of complex representations. And so as long as you're continuing to be able to help build a thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem, that's part of what we're looking for. Hopefully that answers your question. And if there's other, that you might need to share more details in an email or with more details, and we might be able to answer it more specifically then.
I know there's a number of questions that are coming in from previous applicants who are considering reapplying and want to know sort of about the continuity of the award from the first to the second round to make sure that it's worth their while to do that application. And one particular point of that question has to do with wondering if there's any chance for opportunity for feedback from round one.
So there's no opportunity for feedback from round one. That's unfortunately, it's unfortunate, and we wish we had opportunity. We were overwhelmed with the response. We were not prepared for 390 applications within the system that we had. We can't provide feedback from about your prior experience. What I can say is that we are going to be please look at the guiding questions in the application worksheet, and hopefully that will give additional support as to if your response actually can address that. We will also have an information session or two that will have prior awardees to be able to share some information about the process as well as prior reviewers in order to give you some other insight beyond just information from us. I do think that I do believe that the guidelines now with the guiding questions, as well as hopefully with the refinement of what the artist cohort does, and also these criteria, does give some more awareness about things that were a little more abstract in that first round. We encourage you to take time and we would love for you to apply again. And think of this as an opportunity. Please just also look at the FAQs, look at the 15 minutes, the information session around the individual session. There are a number of opportunities in terms of what we provide as applicant support, and hopefully that will help provide more feedback for you.
Okay, for next question, it says our festival and activities are within the city of Houston, the Heights, but our physical business address is in the city limits. May we still apply?
It's not about a project. So if you live within the greater Houston area, that's important. And so the greater Houston area includes 9 county regions, Austin, Brazoria, Galveston, Waller. I'm sorry, I don't have all 9 in front of me or memorized right now. But as long as you have a residence in those nine counties, then you can apply. If your work actually is in this area, then that's great. In terms of festival projects, it's not about a project. Again, it's about the individual artist and their leadership and commitment to our BIPOC, thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem in Greater Houston.
I think one other way of getting at the question for artists who are considering reapplying is to ask, pardon me, if the group of reviewers themselves are the same group of reviewers or if a different set of reviewers have been brought on and what that looks like.
So we have some reviewers who will have previously reviewed in round one. It will also be new reviewers as that has been brought to our attention or nominated through the community review process, nomination review process open online, as well as some other reviewers who have been nominated through other conversations with us. It will not be the same exact group of folks because we are also, there are at least 3 folks who are going to be reading your application, and there will be 3 folks, hopefully, who will be different from if you had applied previously. Again, recognize that even though that you might have applied previously, even though that you did not get an award, there are folks that who might have really loved your application or really thought well of you, but out of 390 applications, we only could name 25 awardees, and so that there is, in terms of that aspect, we hope that you continue to utilize this process in order to think about your own practice, think about what you have been doing and the service that you have provided within Greater Houston. We hope that it's an opportunity for you to talk to advocates and community members in order to understand the impact of your work over time, and that can be an additional benefit to you. And we hope that all of these ideas and these questions are able to contribute to your statements of your artist statements and to your vision in the future. We will continue to look for, we hope to be able to provide feedback this year. And we're trying to build in systems in order to make that happen. Again, it is dependent upon how many applications that we have and the time that we have in this process. It is something that we hope to be able to make happen in that. Hank, did I answer the question or did I avoid it?
Yes, I think that really covers sort of how to think about the difference and the progress and the sequence between the first and the second round.
What questions?
We have a number of questions regarding conflict of interest. For example, if an organization was selected cultural treasure, can the same director or funder be awarded an individual artist? Or if the artists have been associated with one of the partner organizations such as ALMA or MECA, can they still apply?
Okay, so there are a number of different parts of that conflict of interest. If you are a prior awardee, you are not eligible. If you are a Houston Cultural Treasure, members of those, if you're prior grantees in like our 2022 round or as like a Houston Cultural Treasure, if you're affiliated with them, you can apply. It is not necessarily a conflict of interest. It will be one of the questions is if you are affiliated or on staff with one of the prior grantees, and we ask you to be honest in that aspect, and we will make that note. It is not a part of the criteria, but we are going to make sure that the folks are aware of of what that happens in order to make sure that how that happens. So that in terms of eligibility, that actually means in terms of eligibility. In terms of other conflict of interest, I think part of the thing is that if you are applying and you're associated with ALMA or LAWA or MECA in that space, the reviewers need to be very clear on who they actually have conflicts of interest with. And when we mean conflicts of interest, it has to have direct monetary relationships with them as a contractor, as a presenter, or and then also if you have had if you are married, have been married, or in a relationship with them, all of those count as a direct conflict of interest. The conflict of interest, like in guidelines and policy, is actually on our FAQs, and then so we need to look at that as two different aspects of like making sure that if you are eligible, you can apply. And then we will also look at who can review your applications and making sure that there's no conflict of interest in that, as well as trying to make sure that we have folks who have a sense of your area of aesthetic, as well as potentially your cultural history, some of the things in order so that we can make sure that we try to do our best in order to make sure that there are readers who actually can speak to the experience that you name in your application, and so that it's not that there are people who are at least knowledgeable about that and can provide insight into that work. Hopefully that answers that question.
I can speak to one question that is a matter of technicality that I'm resolving in the moment, which is that the submittable platform will be live in minutes. So somebody has asked, like, I don't see the open application. It'll be open in minutes. I'll get to that.
Yeah, check on that aspect.
Next question, is there examples of previous awardees to get an idea of what exactly is needed for the communities? And if there's opportunities to be panelists in the future.
So the last part, if there are opportunities to be panelists, there will be different, we'll try to figure out that opportunity. Right now, this is the last known award resource initiative that we will have. So I'm not sure yet if there will be other opportunities. If there will be other resource initiatives, we will create an open space for another community, for community nominated readers. The first part of that question again, Gabby?
Yes, the first part is there examples of previous awardees to get an idea of what exactly is needed?
So I think that there are two parts that you can look at our website and see the 2023 awardees. But I would also and then if you come to the feature information sessions, we will have some of our awardees actually talk about their application process. What I also encourage you is it is not about them as a solution. It is really about how does your work and how has your history and how does your work as a resident of this greater Houston area and as a resident and a member of a BIPOC community and a community of color actually be supportive of our communities, and how does it help build a thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem? So in what ways is that your artistic vision and your leadership actually demonstrate support and work for our communities of color, for greater Houston? That's what we're looking for, so that when you look at the grantees, the prior grantees, so many of them, like that leadership and that service shows up really differently for each one of them. Your leadership and your service does not have to look like theirs in order to be something that we want to uplift. So that we wanted to make sure that tell your story, be convincing in that aspect, and tell us about your work. One of the things that we are also saying is that we are excited about learning more about our greater Houston communities and figuring out who are the other artists who are doing this work here. And it's not just, so that's part of the review process, is that we have readers who actually who will be excited about meeting and learning new artists and a little more about your work.
Thank you. We have a number of questions regarding the statements of support.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking whether the people who write those letters have to be from the BIPOC community, and if they have requested statements of support previously, can they use it for this application?
If you requested statements of support previously, you can use them. We're not trying to create more work for y'all. Just make sure that those statements of support are actually doing what you asked, that are actually supporting your narrative and your whole application. Your advocate does not have to be a member of the community of color. They don't have to be local. They should be people who can speak to your impact. But again, the criteria is really focusing on the impact on our greater Houston, the 9-county region, and our communities of color. So you can mix it up, but make sure that how you are addressing those priorities and that criteria is actually in the narrative, in your application process and in your support letters.
Thank you. We have a question that I think it refers to the cohort and learning cohort opportunity. And it says, can the group participation be documenting the BANF groups and artists in their ongoing processes after receiving the award, as well as the organization itself and its processes?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again, Gabby?
Yes, I believe this question refers to if their participation in the learning cohort can be done as documenting the process of both the artist and the organization.
No, you need to be an active part of the cohort. And so that the idea around documentation is that as much as I appreciate the idea of documenting this process, that's a whole different kind of component of this work. We're asking for people to be engaged in this process as artists, as community members, and looking in order to help work with each other and not be on the outside, but completely be part of the process. So that might be a reflecting of some of my own understanding of what documentation and evaluation looks like as being separate from. So I think that might be a different part of it, but you need to be an active member of the cohort.
We have a few questions regarding applicant support, including if there will be workshops to work specifically on the application, and if the 15-minute appointments can be used for support for the application.
The 15 minutes of support can be used for support of the application, but it's 15 minutes. So you need to be so we encourage you to be really targeted around that work. We do not offer draft review. That's well out of our capacities right now. There might be workshops. We are working with our organizational partners, operational partners, as well as our community review consultants in order to develop other information sessions and other opportunities. Some of it might actually be places in which for you to have discussions, or potentially can workshop some of your responses. Please keep in mind. Sign up for keep on checking. Sign up for the newsletter and the Artist Award in order to find out more information around that. We hear that as a need. We're also trying to be really conscious of how to be supportive of you all, while also making sure that you all have what you need. Like we hope that the application worksheet and the other information sessions and the FAQs can provide you with a lot of guidance that can actually do that on your within your own communities. And we encourage you to ask your other friends, other support networks, in order to be able to engage in that process. There might be opportunities in this, but we also can't guarantee that the opportunities that we have will be able to address the needs that we have, the needs of the applicants. I'm just being pretty clear that if we had 390 applications last year, we don't have capacities in terms of staff or operational partners in order to be able to give every individual applicant the amount of time that they need in order to be successful in this. We're trying our best in order to support that, but we hope that you can actually utilize the information that we've provided, the FAQs and the application worksheet and the information sessions to be able to help with that process.
I can go ahead and share that the application portal is live. If you've got that window open and you're trying to get into it, just refresh your window and that should resolve itself. And thanks for letting us know that we needed to take care of that. I can also say that we may have more questions than we'll have time for. We're going to answer as many as we can manage. But we see your questions and we are going to have answers either posted in our FAQ. Remember, the help desk for you will have the answers to questions there that we can, if we are unable to answer them in the moment.
And also we see a lot of questions regarding the actual application, and just a reminder that we will have application workshops to go throughout the application and respond questions specifically pertaining to that. For example, we have some questions asking about what work samples refers to, and if they are wondering if they should add images of their own artwork or images of their their work in the community?
So again, that would be the question. It really will depend on your narrative and what you're saying. But I would say that right now, and like not knowing you or the state, it seems like a mix would be great in order to be able to understand what your art is, who it, like, you know, what you do, as well as what is that engagement of the community makes sense. We also have your community support letters and advocate letters in order to be able to provide some of that first-hand knowledge of the experience. So think through the application support, your advocate support letters, your narratives, your work samples, and how do we make sure that there is a narrative for a reader that gives a sense of what your work is and how your service, how your leadership and the art and the community actually is demonstrated.
Going into eligibility, we mentioned that for the last 2 years, residency in the 9-county region for the last 2 years, but there's a question regarding, it says, I've lived in Houston since 2018, but moved out of state and then back in the last 2 years. Am I ineligible?
If you've been here for 2 years in the 9-county region, then I think that it counts as eligibility. I think that you need to, like, it'll be a case-by-case basis, but just demonstrate like where you've been in that space. But yeah. And you also have to have a demonstrated history of impact within Greater Houston. That's going to be another aspect of that space.
Another question regarding, it says, this is about our mission as an artist, correct? And nothing else.
Yeah, it is about your work as an artist. It is about how your leadership shows up in communities. It is about how you engage within the Greater Houston community and the BIPOC communities. So it's not just about you making great art. It's about how your art and your you being an active member of this community, of these communities, and continuing to contribute to a thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem in the future. So I think that it is part of the mission, but it's also for some people that is inherent within the work and their creative product and process, and some people that their art and their creative process, their creative product might look really different from how they engage with communities and what their servant leadership looks like. So it's really it is about you showing up in our communities and as an artist, as a creative, as a leader, and asking you to show how that continues to work. We're asking for all of that kind of particular component in this particular award.
I have a good question I think is useful to expand on, and we may expand on it in the future when we talk about statements of support. The question just asks, do advocate statements of support need to come from artists? And then we've got a broad way of thinking about all the different kinds of advocates there may be. It does not have to be specifically for an artist or any particular one kind of role. In fact, I think we've had advocate statements of support come from children who have benefited from the work that an artist application has done.
Yeah. So exactly, thanks, Hank. I think that when we're talking about advocate support, like somebody who can advocate for your work and really says, like, demonstrates the impact of and how they've benefited from your work. They don't have to be an artist. They don't have to be an adult. They have an opportunity in order to do a video or an audio response as well, so that they don't have to write it out. And so as you think of your work and you think of your leadership and think of your communities, think of who actually, like, how are you helping to cultivate people who can speak about what it is that you do and why it's important? And those are the people that we'd like you to engage with this process, and who be able to, and then if you go into the application worksheet, on the final page in the appendices, it actually has some guiding questions for the advocate. So that's actually given that we did add those things this year. And so that please look at those questions as you have the conversation with the advocate and see if they can help you.
We have a few questions regarding community impact.
Mhm.
For example, if the 2 years for eligibility, does that mean 2 years of residency or 2 years of community impact work? And what are some examples of that impact in the community?
So it is 2 years of residency in Greater Houston, period, as eligibility. In terms of impact, the impact can be 2 years, but it could be longer. We have people who have been here for decades. We have people who demonstrated. You need to be able to demonstrate what has been significant history of impact and benefit to this work. For folks that it's actually been developing, there's many different ways of serving. There's also there like we actually in last year we have talked about that showing up as mentorship, that shows up as teaching, that shows up as healing, that shows up as connecting, that shows up in a number of specific ways of like what does it mean in order to how do you think building a stronger community looks like? How does your work continue to contribute to that? And how are you an active member of that component?
About
Here's
the,
Okay. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
It's something of a technical question just about what the learning community will look like practically. These monthly meetings, are we looking for them to be in person, or can they be
Yes.
online, or do you know what the plan is for that?
We are asking for the first few months will actually be all in person. Definitely. The first 3 months will now, like as different from last year, it will be the first 3 large group meetings will be in person. Previously, we've also, like every other month, we've actually had opportunities for small group connections, with some of them were actually virtual, some of them were in person. It depended on that small group. We encourage you to be available, like we are saying, to be available for at least an in-person meeting for an hour for 2 hours every month, and that there will be some adaptations in relationship to that, depending on the calendar and the schedule. We understand access issues, but we're really trying to be. It is a connection, and having people in the room together is an important part of the work.
And regarding the learning cohort as well, will the group work in a single issue, or will they address multiple issues?
As you will see, the group will be addressing multiple issues, and the group gets it. But so we're building. We look at it from an adaptive and environmental and ecosystemic framework, giving opportunities through creative processes and creative and arts related activities in order to be able to think about what does the environment currently look like, what are opportunities for action with amongst the group, and as a collective, like, and as more than just one person. So it's not just individual actions, but how can the group continue to create actions or think about potential solutions together, potential actions together. So it can be multiple. It can be singular. It depends on how that group comes together, but we would see that it will most likely be multiple. Just going back in terms of like, we've described, like, in terms of service, like last year, we've also described that mentor and connector, leader and caregiver and healer are some ideas in which, like, how service might actually show up.
We've got a number of very interesting and complex questions about community impact and service and what it looks like that you've just spoken to, that I know will be useful for, I think, the design group to see and maybe come up with a larger coherent response, because they are complex questions to be addressing in the moment.
So about that, I think that thanks. I think that this is part of the thing where we encourage the complexity. We encourage the complexity to be showing up in the application. We encourage you to be able to think about not just what is a question, but how does that show up? What does that look like? What does that mean to you? How does your work, how does that impact actually meet the, address the criteria? And how do you make the case for it in relationship to this application process? we have in this process tried to make sure that to be responsive to what shows up here in Houston and not necessarily have preconceived notions of what has happened previously. We are trying to be aware of the histories of disservice that we've had to communities of color, where very specific aesthetics have been imposed upon criteria and imposed upon a granting process. And we're trying not to come into this place in which we have a very specific idea, and it's actually asking you to show us how your idea, your work is exemplary of these ideas, and it meets these, demonstrates the impact and challenges of work. Again, we are excited about what that work is, and then we hope that we'll be able to be that your narrative, your application process, through the work sample, through your advocate support, will actually be able to be a coherent story that reads out to our readers. And we hope that we will have multiple readers in order so that it will demonstrate resonance in this component. But we also hope that what your work has actually been, you've been doing this work out in the community, and so that there are other peoples in which that we will see, and people will have known or have been able to see your work in different places or different opportunities in order to engage. That is partly the hope, but we know that that's not always possible. So we're trying to do multiple components of this, and the complexity is something that we're excited about, but we can't answer each of those individually. So it's going to be one of those where please look at the guiding questions. Please hope that those guiding questions might be able to provide some insight of how you can answer, how you best answer those questions.
I want to acknowledge that we are at the 1 hour point. So I wanted to see what we need to focus on last to fit in before we close down, and also to let Sixto help drive this. Do we stay longer, or do we need?
So I think that Hank, I think Gabby, are there a number of there seem to be a number of unanswered questions, correct, in this space?
That's right. And again, we won't be able to answer questions offline, but if there's anything that's especially useful to share, I don't want to close down that possibility.
Right, there's a simple question here about where's the payout? How's the payout going to be? What we were able to do before is the payout happens in one of three ways: a lump sum over monthly, or one of over. It was actually over 4 quarters or 5 quarters. That's easy in that space. There are a number of other questions I can't, we will copy, we will record all of your questions that have been put in and potentially unanswered. We hope to be able to put up answers to your questions and summarize, synthesize a response to them and put them up in the FAQs that will be available not this week, most likely by next week. We'll try to do that as quickly as we can in that space. Please look at the, there will be more information sessions. There'll be the one-on-ones, there'll be the FAQs, and which in order to be able to set up, utilize all the opportunities that you have for applicant support, and be aware of what those opportunities are. In terms of individual meetings, we have the 15-minute individual sessions that will happen, and that will be with conversations with BANF staff consultants and community consultants. That's what's going to happen in relationship to those. That's what we can have as available to the group and to individual support. I think that in terms of this work, again, we're excited about the possibilities. We're excited about reading and hearing about your work, your artistry, and the impact your work has on the communities of Greater Houston. Again, we are currently funded through May of 2026, and part of the reason why we're focused on this is in order to make sure that we're investing in artists who continue to give back to our community, to give back to this city. we're interested in giving artists who are have a capacity and a willingness and a history of being able to work with each other in order to be able to work with others. I'm sorry, work with others, not necessarily each other, in order to be able to drive leadership and actually be to help lead us into what can be possible and what can lead a thriving ecosystem and thriving future for not only BIPOC artists, but our BIPOC communities. I know that there are only 25 awardees that we can name in this component, but their applications, what you all say, are important stories for us and important stories for us to utilize as advocacy for our communities. The fact that we had 390 applications and what those stories actually said in that last round actually gave us a lot of information in order to be able to talk to our local funders, to other people around what can be exciting about Houston. And though that there are only 25 awardees, that information is essential for us in order to be able to advocate for what can be part of the future, and what hopefully we all can help build together. So thank you for your time, your information, and your effort today. I know that we didn't get to all the questions. There will continue to be more opportunities in the information sessions, but please read the guidelines, read the application worksheet, and spend some time with those in order to then be able to then come back with other questions for us. And then also sign up for the focused communications for individual artists. We try to share as much as we can through those FAQs and through information sessions. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good luck on your applications. Good luck on this work. We appreciate you being here and hope to see you more in future information sessions. Thanks so much. And I think, Hank, can we make sure that we that we copy all of the questions?
Yeah.
And make sure that we have those recorded, both those that were open as well as the answered questions. All right. We need to send out, yeah, I guess we'll also send out the registration information for Mondays and Wednesdays information to the people who registered for this event.
Yes.
We'll put that on the website. Check the website for other details about registrations, and check social media. Do you need me to do anything in terms of the questions?
No, I think we're set. I will end the webinar. Bye, everyone, and we'll collect all the information from this point.